Hi everyone, welcome back to another edition of my videos. Today we've got another analysis game that was played online on the League of Nations League. This is another, I guess, sub-league that's been set up on the 45-minute plus 45-second League Chess League. But this particular one, it's a 30-minute plus 30-second game, so it's a little bit shorter, so a little bit easier for me to play them in one sitting, as I often sometimes find my 45-minute, 45-second games last sometimes 2 hours, which is a little bit too long for me. And certainly I do lose my whole evening doing them, unfortunately. But here is another example. Here's another game that I played in the League of Nations. So the first game, I should say, actually, not another one. But there we go. Okay, right. So I started with e4, c5. I was playing white here, and again I played for my Smith-Morra Gambit. And this time my opponent decided to decline the gambit. So this is known as the decline variation. Absolutely fine for whites. It's believed probably white gets a slight edge in space, but I'll be honest with you, it's not. The black's position in pretty much all lines looks pretty nice. And even looking at the Masters database, it looks like black scores really well in these lines. But this is the point. So black declines the second pawn. So it doesn't go up ahead in the pawn, but white will get control of the centre, but in the trade-off black will get a lot of piece play. You'll notice here he's already got two pieces out. I've got just pawns in the centre at the moment. So now I played knight to f3, d6 was played, and I'm already starting to worry about these bishop g4 ideas. These sort of haunt me quite a lot in a lot of Sicilians that I play, particularly in the Smith-Morras. But here I don't need to worry too much about it. In this situation I now played knight to c3, which isn't actually the most popular move in this variation. Much better is bishop to c4. This actually, weirdly enough, this is actually transposed to the Alapin variation, which is another anti-Sicilian. So the whole point of this is, by going to bishop c4, it's attacking the knights. The knight goes back to b6, which now hits the bishop here. I would now move to b5. So it sort of, I guess, resembles almost like a Ruy Lopez type position. But it's believed to be absolutely fine. There is quite a, I guess, a harmless line, if anything. I think after, I don't want to take this way, as the queens will start coming off. But this is pretty good. The idea, you get this quite compact structure for black. The problem for white is I've got an isolated pawn here. So I'll just go through an example line. There's actually been nearly 800 games from this position from master level play, but unfortunately it's quite a lot of draws, so it's perhaps not the most ambitious continuation, but I mean it's the most popular anyway. So yeah, you can already, I think, just to show an example continuation, this looks absolutely fine for both players. Okay, black gets an isolated pawn in this particular structure, but white's also got an isolated pawn. Quite a lot of pieces have come off. I think maybe black will get maybe some attack here, but this looks absolutely fine for now. So, okay, going back. So that was just something that could have happened. Instead I played this way. And the problem with this is actually black can equalise really easily now. And I quite like black's position after, if he takes here on d5. The point being, if I capture back on d5, knight captures, there'll be a queen exchange. And after this, okay, black's knight is a little bit misplaced on d8, but you may notice here that I've got two isolated pawns. It's not a position I would have been particularly happy with, as these weaknesses can potentially, not this pawn, these weaknesses can be potentially played against my favour. So not the most ideal position to play in. So instead, what happened though is my opponent played a bit of a weird move, knight to b6, which I guess really wasn't all that good. I was a little bit confused when I saw it. I now play bishop to b5, so basically opening up this pin. So my opponent responded with bishop to d7. Now I can't go with this anymore. But here I missed there was a really interesting continuation that we looked in the analysis afterwards. It probably doesn't work though. I think we went through a few of the lines on the computer and then actually eventually it started to equalize. But e6 could have been played here. This is the idea. Firstly, if he captures with the bishop, this is no good. d5 comes in, there is a fork here, so that's no good at all. If he instead captures with this pawn, you'll notice that the king's flank is a little bit weak. So now knight to g5 can come in. I'm now threatening to come in with the queen and start causing some damage. So g6 will need to be played. And now queen to f3. My queen is still threatening to come to the square. And it's quite difficult to react to this. There's only one move that works. Queen to c8. And this will just about save black's position. The king will run away. It should be absolutely fine. In this situation, in actual fact, looking at the analysis, it looks as though white is even here. I would love to just play this queen move straight away. King to d2. Okay, can I capture this pawn now? Well, actually no, I can't because there's these two defenders on it. In actual fact, it's probably better not to do the check because I actually want to encourage the king to go to d8 because then I can come in with the fork with the knight. So the continuation goes just castles and just trying to steadily improve the position. Maybe get my rook here, start hitting this pawn, maybe just get my pieces to good squares. I don't know. So, in any case, you know, black's king side is totally demolished in this for the loss of the pawn. So that's certainly an interesting continuation. Although, as I say, we are down. We're down 2 pawns? No, we're just down 1 pawn in this. So actually, I think adequate compensation for the pawn being down a pawn. Right, so going back then. So we didn't play that. Instead, I just castled, just got my piece to good squares. Again, I did have an opportunity to go really far ahead in the position. And I guess it was quite a tough move to see. That was the move d5, which just looks riddled with complications. The point being, after captures here, I can now play the move rook to e1. I'm now threatening to start charging into the position, capture this, which comes with a check. So bishop to e6 to stop that. Then knight to d4. You'll notice now that this piece is under attack twice. There's only really one way to defend. I was looking at what happens after a6. Well, this is totally losing as the queen will be in attack. So in fact, the queen would have to run into a pin just to survive this position. Already the bishop starts coming in. It's looking pretty bad now. So bishop captures. This is not a pleasant position at all. My pieces seem to be running amok in front of my opponents. Let's just have a look at an example continuation. So it's recommending here bishop to e7, which looked logical. Already this bishop pawn now falls, and well, this is starting to look bad from him. Already queen's coming in with check. Okay, not that good. So there's already some big complications that I could have gone for, but instead I just put my queen to a good square, and I just want to get my rook. I just wanted to follow what I normally play in the Smith-Morra and just get my piece to good squares before I carry out any attacks. So now queen to e7, bishop to f4, there was a capture, castles was played, rook to d1, queen to c7, a nice move, getting it off this this pin, which I think is always good, but of course runs into potentially another pin along here. Rook to c1, rook a to c8, and I was thinking about just jumping my knight to e4, followed by jumping it into there. The only problem with that is I've got to worry about the knight coming to this square, which would hit my bishop. Although even then, no, it just says knight to d5. It just says straight away the engine. So yeah, I think I was worried about that, so I didn't want to play that. And here, I kind of made a small inaccuracy here. Perhaps was better, and we discussed this afterwards, and I thought maybe I really should have played it, was just playing queen to e4. This is the idea. If, let's say a6 is played to kick my bishop, I could come with my bishop to d3, and I'm now just threatening the blunt, straightforward checkmate in one. So g6 will need to be played, and you'll notice that I've now achieved something in this position. All these dark squares are very weak, so I could potentially carry out a quite successful kingside attack. Maybe plug my bishop into h6, hitting the rook, maybe somehow getting a knight, one of these knights, into that f6 square. That would have been very, very tempting. So in any case, I didn't play that. I ended up capturing here, which perhaps I wasn't that happy with, but I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do with this bishop. In actual fact, coming back to d3 would have given it new life, a new lease of life in the position. So I captured here. I then played knight here to hit the queen. Unfortunately, with this move, he can actually capture this bishop, which actually unlocks another attack. After queen captures, okay, it's saying rook f to e d8. That's interesting. So the point being, I can't capture here because he has got a counter attack here. But I think most normal humans will probably have done something like this. I think black's doing fine here. His pawn structure is intact, although having said that, I have got a big space advantage, so I don't think I would have been too unhappy to enter into this position. I could think about maybe doing moves like this, chop off this knight, potentially. The problem I've got though is this knight has always got this lovely square on d5 for him, and actually that's a really good square to get onto, as that controls most of the position and also helps defend his position. So something I would need to consider. Okay, what happened in the game? So the queen actually came back to b8, which I was very happy to see. I now jumped my knight into this lovely d6 squared. Rook came here to avoid getting captured, and I put my knights to d4. My idea was to try and maybe jump my other knights into this square to help defend it, and maybe sort of reroutes around to this square if it got kicked away or something. So let's see what happened. Bishop came to d5. I panicked a little bit here. I probably shouldn't have played what I played. I played here b6, b3, which is actually a bit unnecessary in this position. This is not a threat at all. And there was a very interesting continuation that both of us missed. And it's a very difficult continuation to see. The point being is here I can play the move queen to g4. Very interesting idea to start creating a kingside attack. Now you must be quite interested and intrigued as what will happen after the bishop comes here. There is a lovely move that white can play in this position. I wonder if you can spot it. So the move is knight 4 to f5. What an interesting continuation. So sacrificing the knight, but with a totally irresistible attack. Point being, after e takes f5, knight takes here, we've now got a checkmate threat. There's only one way to defend against this, playing bishop here. So sacrificing the bishop, the pawn comes in. I've now got another threat of checkmates here. g6 would need to be played, and the queen will fall. So once the thing goes here, you've then got opened up this threat as well. So certainly a very interesting continuation to go into. So I missed that. So I played b6 instead, which, as I say, was a little bit, I guess I was a little bit worried what would happen here. a6 was played, so that stopped, sort of ousted my plans here. I was a bit worried about knight to c8 here, but I think this would have been fine as I could just jump my other knight into there. So I'll just show you what that looks like. If this move was played, this would be fine. It's saying rook takes on g5, but I think I'll just show you this continuation. So like that, and my other knight jumps into that square. It's still quite even, that position, so I think black can probably survive. In actual fact, he played a6 instead. My queen came to e3, so I'm just sort of, I guess, slowly trying to improve my position. I want to get my queen over to g3, where it's not only hitting this g7 pawn but also influencing on this lovely diagonal. Knight came to d7. Again, very interestingly enough, this move works now. So I obviously missed it, but it would have been interesting to play. I played queen to g3 instead. The bishop captured, I captured back. I've now got this lovely pawn here, which is a real thorn in black's side. With that said, black continued to fight on. f6 came in. This is now got quite a nasty threat. And bear in mind here, at this point, I'm running out of time. This pawn obviously is now supporting the e5 push, which would obviously fork my pieces. So I decided to move my bishop back to d2. Probably better here would be, in fact, to carry on with my attack with h4. I do not need to worry about this move, as now knight to f5 would still come in. See, this threat is just keeps coming into the position. Really, really nice. Even after rook to f7, this doesn't work at all. As well, I can probably still play this actually, which would just win the rook outright. But another interesting continuation would be knight to e7 check. If let's say the rook captures back, d takes. I'm now threatening to capture the rook, so the rook will come to e8, and now watch as black's position falls apart. Already after this exchange, I can even play this d3 idea. Wow, how interesting. So if after captures you take this off, you start simplifying, you've got a winning position. So that is certainly interesting. Okay, so lots of stuff that I did miss in this game, but I think I still had a nice position anyway. My idea of this, I'm going to go over to b4. I'm going to help defend this pawn on this side. So the knight came to e5. I moved my bishop over to b4. Knight came to f7, which I was very happy to see, as now I can jump my rook into c7. This is a really nice rook now. I can just pile on the pressure, put a second rook, maybe even get both rooks on the 7th rank. This positional, I guess, motif is known as pigs on the 7th. If you can ever get your rooks on the 7th rank, it is so difficult to parry, as they're essentially in the line of pawns infiltrating into black's position, so it's very, very hard to remove. Now in this position, unfortunately, my opponent blundered at this point. I guess we were both quite low on time even at this point, so I think it was only a matter of time before one of us blundered. In this position, my opponent played knight to e5. And of course, hopefully you can see the winning move here. Queen takes on g7. What a shame. We've certainly still a very interesting position at that point, but I think I'm definitely still winning. The computer gives me 4.2. The real problem for him is obviously he has to try and find some way of shifting these rooks, and well, that is a near impossible task in this position. My bishop is well placed over on this side. He has no real way of ever shifting this pawn that is stuck on d6. So it's it was a little bit of a shame that happened in the position. I think it would have been a very interesting to see what would have been played. But in any case, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll speak to you later.